All right, everybody, welcome to Unscripted. And we literally just put this together in the last, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, hour. But special Unscripted today. I've never had a guest with not a Zoom background. It's a real background. So if you're seeing this on video, my man's on the beach and there's waves crashing behind him. That's not one of those green screen videos. Like, that's the real deal. So Corby, thank you for the introduction on the audio as always. Welcome to Unscripted from my studios here at the Junction in Old Hilliard. Let my guest introduce himself and we will roll from there.
Fantastic. My name is Trey Etheridge, and I am the founder of Men Passionate About Christ Ministries. And you're right, I am sitting in my happy place. I am at the beach and try to spend as much time here as possible. I don't live on the beach, so I have to make a little bit of a drive to get over across the causeway. And it's looking nice today because the sun is the high clouds. It's a little cool, and it's just phenomenal to be out and just kind of be in God's surroundings. So I appreciate you bringing me on board, brother.
Well, you can literally hear the waves crashing in the background. So,
all right.
Speaking of background, and that's a good thing. I think, although some people might be so soothed by it that they fall asleep, hopefully we'll keep them awake during the episode. But speaking of background, there's some construction going on the other side of the wall of my studio here at the Junction. So I'm going to be off and on that mute button real quick. But I'm glad to have you on today.
It's crazy. Construction background. Whenever I do my podcast, it's always like the guy with the weed eater, and you get halfway through, and it's like, oh man,
that's right.
All right.
Right. Well, you never know. You never know what's going to happen. That's why it's unscripted. So otherwise, I'd be Joe Rogan and #1 podcast in the country. But it's not.
We both got high goals, bro. We both got high goals.
We got high goals. So all right, let's start at the very beginning. So introduction purposes, you and I met because of our common friend Gary Miracle. You reached out to me. You're a good friend to Gary, as am I. But you reached out to me and your son. Through your son, we were able to do something for Garrett Walston of my diehard fandom, North Carolina Tar Heels. And so that's where we kind of met. But let's go back to the beginning. Why don't you introduce yourself to everyone a little bit more? Tell us your story. And we've got a lot to cover, man. There's in a few short months, we've covered a lot of ground. So why don't you start at the beginning?
Well, it's just so cool. I believe in what you're doing, and I think you kind of see what we do here, and I appreciate your belief and support in what we're doing. And we weren't put on this earth to be alone and accomplish things alone. So this is an amazing opportunity to be with you, brother. I got the story that's pretty all-American. Grew up in an all-American family. I like to tell people that, if I'm dating myself, but those people that remember the show Happy Days, my family was the Cunninghams and I was Richie, and no big issues, didn't have much drama. It was being the jock and dating the cheerleader and all that stuff. And long story short, I became a Christian when I was 13 years old at a summer camp in the Texas Hill Country, where I grew up in Texas. And from that point forward, I just kind of try to do life on my own. And to give you the Cliff's notes of everything, and it all came crashing down on me about 10 years ago as I was, I had lost everything. My business had collapsed. I had tried to fill myself with everything in the world but God, everything but Jesus, and everything just fell apart. My marriage, my relationship with my son, my business, was broke. I had the sheriff's department knocking on my door with foreclosure papers. It was just the bottom. It was a pit that seemed so bottomless. I didn't know how I was going to get out of it. And in the condensed version of my testimony, I came home one night. It was the summer before my son's senior year of high school, and he was being recruited. He was a good athlete, being recruited to play both college football and college baseball. And he had some decisions to make. And this was basically the summer before that senior season. And I was my son at some event, and I dropped him off at home. I said, hey, I need to run to the supermarket. I'll be back later. and I didn't come home.
Mm.
And I drove for hours crying, screaming out to God. It wasn't long before that my wife came to me and said, I don't feel safe with you anymore.
Mm.
And it wasn't from a physical perspective. It was from a financial perspective. I made some horrible decisions that affected my family. And I kept them from her. I totally kept secrets from her I shouldn't have kept as far as our financial status. And she wanted to leave me, and I saw it coming. Business failed. Everything about me as a man. For a man, for their wife to come up to you and say, I don't feel safe with you. That's the stuff, brother, that cuts you. Like that's what we're built for, is to protect. And in any case, I took that drive, was gone a couple of hours screaming at God. Why did you put me here? Why aren't you answering my prayers? I've done these things, X, Y, Z, and pillar in my community, and all this stuff. And I ended up at a rest area. And in my pickup truck, I had a hunting knife. And I just stared at that knife. And I decided, I had made the phone call earlier in the day to my life insurance company that I had cleared the rider for suicide. And I was in a predicament, Aaron, where I was like, all right, do I slit my wrist or do I slit my throat? What's going to be quickest, man? And that's how low it was.
Wow.
You know what's even more screwed up? I actually thought, what's going to make the least amount of mess in this truck? Because my son's going to get the truck.
Oh my God.
I don't want to leave a mess. And then it even got worse than that. In my mind, it was, what's going to leave the most repairable marks so my mom won't see it while I'm in my casket. I mean, that's where I was, man. And wow. I was in a lonely rest area on Interstate 95 east of Orlando, and screaming out. I had the deceiver in my ear saying, they're better without you. They can use that money. Your son's going to go play college ball. He's got a senior year of high school. They're going to be better off without you. And I was believing the lie. And I screamed out to God one more time and just said, I'm better off not being here. So here I come. And Aaron, at that moment, even though I confessed my belief in Christ when I was 13 years old, repeated a prayer from a pastor, at the pulpit, that I had no clue what it meant. At that moment, you can call it, I heard the word of God, or I sensed the word of God, or popped into my head, whatever it was. The words came to me, who's going to watch Garrett, my son, play football on Friday night? You're going to need to be there on a Friday night. And it was really odd to me. And then the next things I felt and heard and sensed were, I've never left you. You can't leave your son. I've always been here. I just never reached out to him.
Wow.
It was like I was reaching out to him. He's like, he answered the phone, Aaron, and looked down at me and said, dude, I've been waiting for the phone to ring.
Right.
Where you been?
Right.
I've been watching you, and it ain't going so good, Wow. I've been waiting for you to call,
Right.
And this sense of the yoke of Jesus and how it's light just started. I just felt things start falling off of me as I purged, and I pretty much purged. I like to say it was every sin I've ever committed in my life, but I know that's impossible. But
right,
I just purged, people I'd hurt, what I'd done, people I'd stolen from, and all of that, and just brought it right to the cross. And I just felt this cleansing start taking place, right? And then an odd thing happened. My phone rang. And I looked down, and it was one of my best friends. And he was a detective with the Orlando Police Department. And I dreaded answering the phone because all I felt was I answer this phone and I'm just going to hear, what the hell are you doing, man?
Yeah.
You know, and I answered the phone and all I got was, hey, brother, I'm missing you right now.
Wow.
I know what you're going through and we need to talk.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't talk to you like this. I got to see you face to face.
Mm.
So tell me where you are. I'm going to send a cruiser to come pick you up. And it's going to be all right.
Wow.
And I began weeping.
Mm-hmm.
And I started purging to him everything I just purged to God. And this cleansing process continued. And I started feeling better. And I said, Don, I said, don't send the cruiser. Can you just meet me at home? I was about an hour away from my house. I said, I'll just drive home.
Mm.
So I did. And Don was waiting on me, as was an ambulance. A very worried wife who was soon to be my ex-wife, but she was very concerned. My son was freaking out. And they examined me. Went to the doctor the next day, a little therapy. But as I sat down with Don over coffee after that and looked at him and he looked at me and said, why hadn't you ever told me these things before?
Mm.
Why would you let it get that far?
Yeah.
And I said, I was ashamed.
Mm.
I was ashamed I'd let my family down. I was ashamed my wife told me she didn't feel safe with me anymore. What man wants to say something like that,
Yeah.
And then you know what he said to me?
Mm.
He looked right at me, brother, and he said, I'm having troubles with my marriage too, man.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, you know what? I've gotten a few notes from the bank itself. I'm not as far along as being foreclosed on like you are, but I've had a few notes from the bank, and you and I are experiencing the same stuff in life. And
Mm-hmm.
why don't we ever talk?
Mm-hmm.
And so that night before, I discovered who Jesus truly was someone that had never left me,
Mm-hmm.
that always loved me, that totally forgave me, that totally justified me through his blood on the cross. I just didn't connect all the dots, man. And then with the phone call and the talk with my brother, the men thing came in, and us men, we don't go there. And so that was basically the seeds that were planted for our ministry today. And we're going pretty strong.
That's awesome.
I think you've seen some of the things we've been doing.
Yes, sir.
So that's kind of how Men Passionate About Christ got started.
Wow. I mean, wow. I have a feeling, it's so funny. You and I were talking, I don't know, half hour ago, 45 minutes ago. And we didn't even know what this was going to be. We were just going to click record and see what happened. And I'm sitting here listening to your testimony, and I'm thinking that this is going to land with somebody that really needed to hear it today, whoever that is. And I don't know who that is. God knows who that is. But man, somebody needs to hear that story. That's a powerful story, and it's real. I mean, it's very raw, but I love that. You're so right. We have this tendency to want to pull us, and look, there's books. I'm sure there's shelves and shelves of books written about this, but as men, we want to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. I'm from Cleveland, so I have a tendency to get very Clevelander, as I call it, my 216. My dark side comes out when I get angry or or frustrated or protective and those things. But sometimes it's not a good thing. Sometimes there's that vulnerability. And you and I were just on the phone, like I said, 45 minutes ago, half hour ago, and you were asking me some questions and holding me accountable to some things. And we got to have it, man. We have to have it. And so for you to start a ministry, and, you didn't just start a ministry. That's what's so powerful. I hope people just heard. You didn't just start a ministry. You've lived. The very person that you're appealing and working to protect and help in a men's ministry is someone just like yourself sitting in that truck. Is that fair to say?
It's very fair to say. There's a little extra that happened after that night. I know you're a sports guy, man. And, 3 months later, it was a Friday night, and my son, my 17-year-old son, his name's Garrett,
Mhm.
Starting quarterback, national TV game, lots of lights, state champion, or I'm not state championship, but state playoff implications, and tight game going to the wire. And he happens to have the worst thing ever happen to him in his life happen to him on this football field that night. Of course, the team lost. The last game he would ever play in high school. I got to admit, I didn't really have a good club in the bag for the shot that I needed to take to help my son right there. It was one of those deals, and he didn't come home. He didn't come home. About 1 a.m, I saw the lights of the truck come in, right? And I was sitting there on our big sectional, no TV on, just sitting there in the dark. And I was kind of weeping for him because I knew how hurt he was, and the cruelty of the internet. It just, to see things written about your own kid, it just heartbreaking. And he walked in, and he couldn't even get past the threshold as I saw the tears start flowing from his eyes. And he just came up and he collapsed in my arms on that couch. And he wept loudly. And I just held him, and just said, "I love you." And that's the only words I could say, because I just didn't know what to tell him at this moment. I couldn't tell him, "Hey, get over it. It's just the game." It was the biggest game of his life.
Right.
And that night, Aaron, and I know you have kids, but that night I sat there and laid there and held my 17-year-old son all night long. Woke up with him the next morning. That's the last time I've held my son.
Right.
Was when he was 17 on that night.
Wow.
Well, as I was holding him that night, Aaron, I thought back to that rest area in that truck when I heard the words, "Who's going to watch him play Friday? You're going to need to be there one night."
Yeah.
And this was the night.
Right.
And it just electrified me to think that. And I wish I could tell you the story ended happily with my wife, but she left and went back to Texas. And Garrett went away to play college football for a year, and then he ended up playing college baseball and did well. And he's very successful in the business world today.
Yep.
And then it was about, like I said, the seeds were planted. And it was about 3 years later when I met this amazing lady that I'm married to now. And we were just dating, and I got a phone call from one of my best friends, but it was his wife. And she called me and said, "Trey, I got bad news." And I said, "What's up?" And she said, "Raul is no longer here." And I thought, "What do you mean he's no longer here? Did he go on a plane and go to New York or what?" And she goes, "No, we found him dead this morning. He slit his throat in the bathroom." And Aaron, I just talked to him yesterday, the day before. And I said, "Milda, what the heck? What are you talking about?" And she said, "Well, his depression finally got him." I said, "Depression?" And she goes, "Well, yeah, and his alcoholism." I said, "What? Alcoholism?" I said, "Man, every time we go out to dinner or to a function, I have a wine with my steak, and he's always, 'Diet Coke, please.' I have a Diet Coke. I have a Diet Coke." He was a closet alcoholic. I had no clue. And then she said, and then when he got fired from his job, that was the last thing. And I said, I talked to him yesterday, and he said he just had an amazing opportunity to go find another job. And she goes, "Oh, no. He got fired because he was driving the company car and he got pulled over and he was intoxicated." And why did I not know that about one of my, what I consider great friends? I had no clue, man.
Right.
And that was where God told me to, all right, put down the pom-poms. Time for you to get in the game. There are men that need to hear some messages. There are men that need to get real with each other. And that's how Impact started. It was about a year later after I got married to Donna. Told her what was going on. I asked her permission, and I said, "I want to get about 4 guys in my living room." And I don't want a Bible study. The Bible's going to be a huge part of what we do. But I just want four guys to look at each other and say, you know, we're not real about who we are. We're not real about who we are as Christian men. And we want to get that way. And so 5 years ago, four guys in my living room, and now it's turned into you and me 5 years later, and I'm sitting on the beach talking to you on a podcast.
In Columbus, Ohio, right?
In Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, you know, man, that's so amazing because there's so many things in there that I could unpack, and I don't know where this podcast goes. I'm not responsible for that. What I'm responsible for is the inputs, and God controls the outcome. And you know, God's going to control the outcome of who clicks on listen or play or whatever it might be on whatever platform it might be on for this episode. And I pray that those words are falling not even softly, because for guys, we don't need to hear it softly. We need to hear it loud, and we need to hear it real. So look, man, I'll go ahead and testify and raise my hand and say it's hitting me pretty hard what you're saying right now. I'm the worst. My wife will tell you I'm the worst. You know, we have a text string that you're a part of called the Band of Brothers. And, you know, it's a text string because that to me is still somewhat safe. If I'm just being very honest on a podcast, it's safe. You know, I'm not looking at you in the eye like we are right now. And, you know, I'm going to get on a plane and come down your way in 2 weeks for a conference that you are putting together. That's going to be difficult, man, because now we're going to be face to face and I can't hide behind my little keyboard on my phone anymore, right? I mean, I think that's it's, you know, that's not vulnerable. That's somewhat real, but not real. You know, being face to face, shoulder to shoulder in the foxhole together, fighting this battle together, that's real. And so let's talk about Impact for a minute, but then I want to talk about all the things that you have going on because I want people to find places where they can find you. So talk about Impact. What do you guys do? What's the overall, and I think you've touched on a little bit, but why don't you go into Impact a little bit?
You know, our main objective is to work with men in a very confidential, non-judgmental, non-condemning atmosphere where they can, excuse me, it's kind of trouble when you're sitting on the sand on the beach and the sand shifts underneath you.
First world problem, man.
I know, right? No, but we started in the living room where men just began sharing things that were haunting them from their past that they were ashamed of. Whether it's adultery or pornography or their addiction or, you know, they beat their kid one night or whatever it is. But they had the opportunity to sit with us. You know, James writes, Jesus' own brother writes in James chapter 5 about confessing your sins to one another. So through prayer and then, you know, the Holy Spirit, there's a healing process that can begin. It's not about confessing to God. It's about confessing to brothers. And that's our cornerstone scripture, is for me to sit down with you, Aaron, and say, bring it, man. There's nothing you can say that's going to upset me. There's nothing you can say that's going to make me judge you. There's nothing you can say that's going to make me condemn you. But you need to get it out. And I might not have the right answer, but at least as you open your mouth, the brothers start feeling things just kind of falling off their shoulders, you know? So we wanted to be that type of an organization and a ministry. And for 4 years, we met in a local restaurant every Wednesday morning at 6:30. And then it just kept growing. We turned from 4 into 6 into 8 into 12. And all of a sudden, those intimate conversations, we're having too many people. So we created another day to meet. And then we created a virtual meeting. And then we, you know, let's go social media and create a website. And now we're a non-for-profit. And, you know, we want to be a resource for men to understand the truth of the gospel. And just like Jesus told me that night, I've never left you in spite of all the crap I've done in my life. I've never left you.
Mm.
And we want to convey that message to men everywhere, that your identity changes when you become a Christian. Jesus's blood meant something. His resurrection meant something. It's the most historical 2 or 3 days in the history of our world. And so many men don't understand it, and they just hide, or they shrug it off, or I don't want to get in a men's group. I could care less about that. I just want to show up at church for 30 minutes on Sunday and hear a message from the pulpit. We want to be that resource for guys to come out, come clean if it's on their hearts, and just have an ear. And so we created our brand new page opened up last weekend. I'm so excited about it because we have what we call the MPACT Brotherhood support page. And we're reaching out to men all over the world saying, what's your struggle? What's the thorn in your side? And you can go down the list, whatever it is. You know what? We've got a group of 15 to 20 men that have struggled with what you struggled with. Shoot us an email. We want to start a correspondence with you right now.
Mm.
And that website went live last Saturday, and you wouldn't believe the emails I've already received from men just saying, hey, I cheated on my wife, or I went back to the bottle, or I just needed someone to hear me say it.
Mm.
And it's been a powerful tool, man. And it's what brought me and Gary together, our friend Gary Miracle. Gary, after he got healthy, he went to my pastor and just told him, I want to get involved with men. And my pastor says, you and Trey got to get together. And so Gary and I have become instant friends, because that's a lot of his message too, So we just want to be that resource, Aaron, and for anybody that's listening on this podcast or people, we want to be that resource for men. It ain't about us being promise keepers or being macho or being better men. It's about Jesus and how we get past it, leaning on him instead of filling ourselves up with all the worldly junk. Yeah. So.
Well, what's the resource for that? So what's the website?
Go to impactministries.org. Now, impact is spelled with an M. Impact is an acronym, and I saw you sporting the shirt the other day. But,
absolutely, no doubt.
The acronym is for Men Passionate About Christ.
Okay.
So it's MPACT Ministries.org. You can access our brothers' revelations in Christ. You can access daily messages, some of my thoughts. We have both of our podcasts that are on there. You can listen to every episode. We have the Brotherhood support page that guys can go to. Just click on the email and we will put you in touch with the man that has struggled with whatever you're going through. We have some merchandise to sell for fundraising to keep the operations going for the ministry. We always love for people to partner with us donation wise for monthly giving. We are a non-for-profit 501c3s, and I left a very high-paying job. God called me last December. I left my job in corporate America to do this for a living, and spread this word of hope to men. And so that's the main place I'd go. The other place is our Facebook page continues to grow. We don't have a gazillion followers like you do yet, but we're getting there.
I have like 5. Seriously. But anyway.
But we have a Facebook page for the ministry. It's called Impact Men Passionate About Christ. I think the tag for it is Impact for Men, FOR, Impact for Men. We also have a page newly created that doesn't have many followers yet for both of our podcasts. And then, of course, the Instagram presence as well. So we're just trying to keep content up. We want men to ask questions. We want men to look and say, I never really heard that before. Mm-hmm. What do you mean that the Bible says I am truly forgiven? I sit at home at night and I pray and worry and everything else if God's even listening to me? And you're telling me that the blood was that powerful that 2,000 years after Jesus died, I'm forgiven for the sin I commit today? And I look at him and say, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he says past, present, and future. And guess what? 2,000 years ago, Aaron Conrad was in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And every sin Aaron Conrad commits or Trey Etheridge commits was in the future. So we need to rest in what that truth is. So we really dive deep on those kind of things.
Well, the same power that raised Christ from the dead lives in every one of us, and we forget that sometimes. We minimize it. We don't realize that, as our friends at Mercy Me say, you know, you're driving 35 with a rocket inside. I didn't understand that lyric, and so I asked our friend Gary, like, what does that mean? Like, I don't even know what that means. Yeah. And he explained it. When he explained it, it was like this aha moment. Like, you're right, man. We're driving 35 through life. We're in the school zone at 20. And we got a rocket inside, and we have so much more potential than we realize, and we can't tap into that potential until we get real with one another and start sharing with one another. Otherwise, we're gonna get buried. We're gonna get buried by our own junk, man. We're gonna do it.
You know, I know you're going this weekend to see, or next weekend to see Mercy Me, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
The next weekend, yeah. You know, we went last week. You know, when Bart, during a set change, Bart, he brought the gospel beautifully for 15 minutes, and he mentioned Romans 8:11, and that's my money verse. I've got a big money sign next to it in my Bible because I'm coming up on my 3-year anniversary of having to have emergency open heart surgery. Wow. And you know, I woke up the next day, and as I was coming off the drugs and stuff, my wife looked at me and said, "Well, you must really like Romans 8:11." And I said, "Well, yeah, why?" She goes, "Because you told every doctor, you told every nurse, you told every lab technician, you told everyone that's walked in here, you've looked at them all and said, do you realize if you believe in Jesus, that the very spirit that raised Christ from the dead lives in you?"
Absolutely.
And if you believe that, can you imagine walking around that way every day instead of walking around going, "Oh man, I wonder if I'm good enough," or "Oh man, I wonder if he forgave me of that." So that was my testimony from my triple bypass. Like I said, 3 years ago, December.
Wow.
So,
well, man, you have a story, and I think you've got a lot more story, and always can come back because I think we have a lot more to share. And you and I are just getting started. Gary, you and I are just getting started. Gary, Trey, Garrett and I are all just getting started. I think God's putting together something pretty special. We don't even know what that looks like yet, but he does. And what I can't, you know, I know for sure, you just mentioned it. So in 2 weeks, I'm going to be down your way. So let's talk about the conference. What's going on with that? Because I know we got a deadline coming up, depending on when people hear this. What is the deadline date?
Well, it's going to be a great event. We had a conference plan for last year, and of course, COVID kind of knocked it out. The year before, we had an amazing one. We had a gentleman named Nate Larkin that came out of Nashville, and I love Nate. And it was a little bit different format, but just so powerful. We had men that came out that looked at me and said, "Trey, I have never prayed over another man in my entire life, and I'm 60 years old. Why haven't I ever done that? Right. Why haven't I ever put my shoulder around a man and say, let's pray right now to Jesus Christ," you know? So with our ministry and the church that I go to, and they're just so gracious. They let me use the facility to promote my ministry. We have quarterly breakfast, and they're always powerful. We have a couple of hours in the morning for breakfast, but this event called Grace for Man is going to be focusing on exactly what you and I talked about, is what does grace do in our lives? How does it affect us as men? And there's no one better at explaining that than my friend John Lynch. And I called him several months back, and he says, "Oh man, that's going to be a special night." And so John's coming in. He's going to be our excuse me, our keynote guy, right? I'm going to be the host and keep the things flowing. And I've got a small message, but you know, I'm not taking anything away from John Lynch because his nuggets are far superior than mine. Yeah. And Gary is going to be speaking on Saturday. We have got a special panel of people that are going to be addressing the men that are there. And that special panel are there's going to be a daughter and 2 or 3 wives that are going to be looking at the men and explaining the importance of us knowing who we are in Christ for the benefit of the marriage, or being the parent, or the household, or the spiritual leader type thing. And we're going to have praise and worship. We're going to have some fun and humor, and we're going to have some breakouts where the men can get together in a small group and look each other in the eye and just say, if you've read The Cure, what room am I in right now? Am I in the room of good intentions, or am I in the room of grace? And, where am I in my journey? And John calls it, he thinks it's going to be stunning. And that word's pretty powerful. I don't use that word much unless I see my wife in a beautiful dress. I'll say, you look stunning tonight, right?
Right.
And Gary's message is going to be really powerful, because there's so much happening in his life that he's going to share, other than surviving what he had to survive. And I'm really looking forward to him talking about that. So the tickets you can go to the website. It's called Church. It's at the Church at Viera in Melbourne, Florida. You can fly into Orlando. You can fly into Melbourne direct flight from Atlanta or Charlotte. We're going to start at 6:00 on Friday night. Like I said, some praise and worship, some brotherhood, some food. It's a $35 early registration fee. And that early registration period ends Halloween night. So next Monday it goes up, and it's only $50 then, but it's still a benefit for anyone who wants to come to go ahead and get up there and register. And I can give you that site to put on your, on the verbiage for the podcast, Aaron.
Sure.
But it's churchatviera.com/events. And you can just scroll down till you see the men's conference. You don't have to scroll far. You can also see the information on the front page of my website with the registration information there. And if you check out the Impact Facebook page or Instagram account, it's all over.
It is all over.
There are ways to a welcome message from John and from Gary, and then I tried to keep up with them, but they lapped me. But I would love for all of your friends. I can't talk to you without doing this, by the way. So
for those on audio, he just put on a Carolina hat. So
all you Tar Heels, because I want to talk about that. I want to talk about this tap as well and what we're doing. But for the men's conference, registration's going through the roof right now. We got guys coming from all over the country, and man, I just can't wait. I know there's going to be one man there that walks away with the revelation of Christ in his life. And if it's just one man, we've done our job.
Worth it all. Absolutely. Worth it all. Yep. So let's talk about the Carolina hat, because you did mention it. And so I'll have all the links that you just talked about. So that's important. And you only know I'm going to be there. I'm getting on a plane. I'm going. I can't wait to be there. And I'm looking to go down there, not to just sit around and be with guys. I'm looking down there to get change. To be challenged, and I know I'm going to come back different, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, buddy, I think you're going to love it. I can't wait to see you. And we're going to, by the way, I've got plans for you. You and I are going to be taking a walk on this beach right behind me. Okay. So you can tell all your Columbus people, I'm taking a swimsuit with me.
Oh, dude, you do not want to see me in a swimsuit. All right.
Let's talk. We'll keep the shirt on.
Let's talk Tar Heels.
I love it. Dude, this is why I love your podcast so much, because it's just,
it is what it is.
I watched the Carrie Job one the other day. Okay, I'm sitting here. I know Carrie Job was on there blowing me away, so you guys, I'm sitting here just Joe Schmo, but we're going to make a difference somehow.
No, dude, every guest is special. So, and every guest has a story, and every one of us has a story, and every story is important, regardless of what, what your platform is or who you are. I mean, every story is important, and every one of them lands somewhere where it needs to land. And I guarantee you, again, this one has landed somewhere today that it needed to be. So don't minimize awesome. The impact of this interview. I won't, and I know God doesn't. So,
no way.
And your life, man. That's look. Don't minimize it. It's huge. And God love Carrie Job. I mean, we all do, but
man,
don't minimize the impact.
I told you the story about that concert I saw of her, right? At the House of Blues down at Disney. I walked in. It was my birthday. I'll never forget it. And all the bartenders are just sitting there like this, because there ain't nobody buying drinks. Right. I saw a couple of beers out there, and at the end of the night, she stopped before her last song, and she looked at the crowd of House of Blues. There might have been 2,500, 3,000 people there. She looked at the crowd and said, "Guys, I'm going to challenge you out of just through the love of Jesus. When you walk out, you see those tip jars in front of those bartenders? I want those tip jars full. I want them tipped more than any other concert that's ever come in here, the secular concerts or whatever. So would y'all mind doing that for me?" And dude, when I walked out, those 10 or 12 tip jars on that bar were overflowing.
That's awesome.
People were going and buying a Coke, using their credit card and giving a $20 tip for a Coke. I mean, it was too cool. I love that lady. I love her. So like I said in that episode, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Not to promote my own podcast, but Carrie Job's music walked my mom home, and I'll never forget that. She was my mom entered eternity and the rest of her life with her king to Carrie Job's music and words, and that's just something you can't. I don't even know. I don't know how you say thank you for something like that, but all right. So we've covered the conference. 2 podcasts, quickly. 2 podcasts. You've got what are those? We started a podcast this year. We have about 14 episodes, 12 or 14 episodes. It's called Grace for Man. And since I started the ministry, I am I take a lot of notes on men's stories so I don't forget them. And so the Grace for Man podcast, they're me telling the stories of the men in a confidential way. So you can go and click on any. If you want to start with one of the podcasts, go to Unconditional Forgiveness.
Okay.
It will blow your mind. You can go to my my testimony, but that's boring. But go to Unconditional Forgiveness, Grace for Man. It's on the website, but it's on all the major channels. I use Spotify because it's on my phone. I've always had Spotify, so I use it. Awesome. And then we got an idea, and I think you're going to like this one.
I love this one.
Yeah, we got this idea, and you're going to meet all these guys when you come down in a couple of weeks, and they're fired up about meeting you. We have 4 pillars of charitable giving for our ministry that we physically serve and we financially support. And one of them is the homeless. It's a rescue mission for men here in Melbourne, Florida. And part of our giving there, we give, but part of our service there is we have a mentoring group every Tuesday night. And these guys are out of prison. They're drug addicts, made some bad decisions. They come from all walks of life, but they're at this place. There's 52 beds here. And I go down there with these 2 guys named Jeremy Sheffy and Michael Thomas. And we also have Tim Schallhorn and a couple of other guys go down. And every time after we get through with these sessions, Aaron, we got about a 30-minute drive home. And the conversations between me and Michael and Jeremy, they are out of this world about, I don't understand how he can't get past these legalistic thoughts. How can we crack this nut that he keeps blaming God for everything? We have these really deep conversations. And Jeremy, who you can't miss, I called Jeremy my bodyguard. He was all conference at West Virginia, played for the San Diego Chargers for a little while. Jeremy just called me one day and said, "Man, these conversations we have when we're driving home, we should record those because those are." And I said, "Huh." So the next week, we have our session, and I take my backpack, and they don't know it, but my podcast recorder's in my backpack. And I purposely sit in the back of Jeremy's truck. And sure enough, on the way home, man, we start lighting it up. And it's unfiltered. It's just guys talking. We might say we're pissed off about something or whatever. And I set the microphone up in between the two of us, all three of us, and we talked. And then the next day I sent it to him and I said, this is what we need to do. 3 or 4 guys sitting around a bar, sitting around a campfire, sitting around a pool, whatever, just having an unfiltered talk about men's issues, and Jesus. And Jeremy said, let's call it the Cussing Christians. So that's the name of our podcast, the Cussing Christians.
That's right.
And not too many people have been hung up on that yet. And I try to explain it ain't about the title. It's just about the content. And we've had 4 episodes, and each one we get a little better. You know how it goes. When you first start, it sucks a little bit, and then it gets better and better and better.
Mm-hmm.
So we're having fun with it. So that's the 2 podcasts, Grace for Man and the Cussing Christian.
And you can find those on all the platforms, right?
All the platforms, or you go to that website I told you earlier, and everything's on the website. So yeah.
All right, so let's circle back because we didn't cover it. You're wearing the Carolina hat, which just my heart. I mean, it's so full.
Hey, is this better? Is this better, or is this better?
Oh man,
the Tar Heels.
They're both pretty good.
Which way you want me to go?
They're both pretty good. Either way, you're comfortable. I love the logo and I love the color. Yeah, I'd love me some Tar Heels. So let's talk Garrett Walston, because that was our original connecting point, and Gary.
Yep.
But really, and what you all are doing something for Garrett, and I'm trying to just keep up and do the same. But let's talk about Garrett Walston for a minute. What he's doing this year and why he's doing it. I told you the rescue mission was our first pillar of charitable support. Our second pillar is Alzheimer's. Our third pillar is anti-porn and anti-sex trafficking. And our fourth pillar, because of the suicide theme, is suicide awareness, depression awareness, and suicide prevention. Mm-hmm. So my son called me out of the blue, and my son's name is Garrett. Right. And you talked to Garrett. You talked to my son. Yeah, great guy. Yeah.
And Garrett works with a sports agency called Loyalty Above All. Mm-hmm. And they represent Garrett Walston because the college athletes the NIL agreement where they can make money on their name, image, or likeness. Mm-hmm. And my son called me one day out of the blue, and my son Garrett is very involved in our ministry. And he said, "Hey, Dad, I think we can do something pretty cool here. You remember, my sister-in-law's nephew. That's my brother's wife's nephew. He committed suicide in February. He killed himself in February. His name was Riley Estes. And total shocker. No one knew the length of the depth of his depression. And he ate dinner with his parents one night, and the next day he was gone. Mm. And Riley is the Estes family. They have their extended family, and that's the Walston family. And mm-hmm. Garrett Walston, the tight end, number 84 for the Tar Heels, it devastated him that he lost basically a brother. Right. And so he decided, and as my son told me, my son Garrett said, he's dedicating his whole season to raise money and generate awareness for depression awareness, suicide, and suicide prevention. And he said, how can MPACT get involved? How can men passionate about Christ get involved? And I said, you don't even have to ask. It's done. We're gonna find a way. So Garrett reached out to Garrett Walston, who had already gone to Coach Jones and got permission to dedicate the season and got permission to put the initials on the back of his helmet. And we went full born in. We just says, we're in, man. We want to help. And so every pass that he catches and every touchdown that he catches, for every pass he catches, we're making a donation to the Rilo Foundation, which is for suicide prevention and awareness in honor of Riley Estes. And then for every touchdown pass that Garrett catches, we're going to double that donation.
Awesome.
So that's what we're doing. And every week we put up a goofy video for that week's opponent. And you helped me out with the Duke thing and brought your brother in from Duke.
That's right.
And so at the end of the season, when bowl season's over, I'm hoping just to fly up to Wilmington and get with Brian and Gretchen, the parents of Riley, who I've really gotten closer to now. I never really knew them. I saw them at my brother's wedding and something else. And so get to know them more and try to make our donation from MPACT Ministries to help that out. Because, dude, our youth are so isolated today. And the suicide rate for our youth is skyrocketing. And anything we can do to generate awareness to help with this will be great.
Yeah. Well, and I think it brings it full circle because it talks about all the things that you've talked about. One, your story, and where you were with suicide. One, or two, your son and the impact now that you have with the relationship with him. Three, the impact of the ministry that you've now, and I'm not using that word, no pun intended, but you're using now, the impact you're making because of the ministry impact that's having. And then, the isolation that our kids now feel because of, and we're not here to talk politics, but the shutdown and being isolated from their friends and what COVID did to them from just an isolation standpoint is going to have long lasting effects far beyond this stupid virus.
Crazy. Yes.
You've got, so anyway, man, this has been awesome. You're awesome. I'm so blessed, honestly. I was blessed to meet Gary Miracle. That's just the guy replied to an email, and here we are. And yet here we are. And now you and I are now on, and Garrett Walston and your son. And man, I get to come down and hear John Lynch and meet, guys from that are going to attend the conference. And I hope there's people getting on a plane and coming down and joining both of us for that thing.
Yeah, I do too. We're expecting a pretty big crowd. Men are the world's worst about signing up for things in a timely manner.
That's right. You need to send it to their wives.
But yeah, and you know what? I actually sent an email to the wives of our church,
right?
And it went through the lady, and it went through the women's ministry leader, and it just said, ladies, give your man a nudge. He needs to be here.
Right.
We need to be slapped around a little bit to get off the pot and get going, So we did that. But for registration purposes, like I said, we're 2 weeks from tomorrow from when it started, and we're already more than double where we normally are at this time leading up to an event.
You'll need a bigger church.
So I'm expecting 200 to 300 men show up. Wow. And that'll be. But like I said earlier, if just one walks away with a revelation,
100%,
it might be you, brother. It might be, it might be somebody else. But just one man walk away, I'll be happy. Because our theme with Impact is one man at a time, and that's just how I approach everything now.
Well, I can tell you already, I'm impacted. I haven't even been down there yet, so I can only imagine what's going to happen when we get down there to quote our friends from Mercy Me. But man, I love you, brother. I appreciate you. I love that you got a real. Waves crashing in the background. It's not a green screen, man. That's another unscripted first.
Has anyone photobombed us, or has anyone come up and photobombed me? I haven't been able to see.
Trust me, I've been a little worried about the ones walking on the beach behind you, but no, it's been relative. But here's the thing: I've been so locked in and listening to you, I haven't paid a ton of attention. But I am OCD, so when things walk by behind in the back, I am easily distracted. And no, I haven't. There's been a few birds, but a few people walk. So that's beautiful. It's awesome.
I like your background, because at my house, my background will be drapes, and it's boring.
Yeah.
So at least that, you know, now I can do this and like point down and you can see it's live. So we're live and we're rocking. So
You are. Well, it's awesome. All right, man. I'm going to see you in a few weeks, and
I can't wait.
I'm going to get this posted, and we're going to do this again. We're going to do this a lot.
We got a lot more to talk about, bro.
We do. We have a lot more to talk about, and we have a lot to cover, and we have a lot to do in the future. So I'm thankful for you and your friendship, and I know this is going to land somewhere today where somebody really needed to hear it. And I appreciate everything you're doing.
Right. Yep. And if anyone is on that website and they hear something today that strikes them or they have a question about, just go to our website. The first thing I would ask you to do is sign up for our newsletter. We don't inundate you.
Nope.
We'll send you a monthly newsletter and that's it. Yep. And the second thing is hit the email button, and I get it personally, and I would love to hear from you. So
yeah, please reach out. Let's not do this alone. Get on a plane, come meet us at the men's conference. If you're not able to do that, get signed up for the newsletter. And, you know, if you feel something, reach out to email. Let's not do this alone, guys.
Can we do one thing for fun? Just
for,
just on the count of three, we can give the slogan for the Rilo Foundation. You remember it?
Oh, I do.
Okay. So
what you mean what Rilo stands for?
No, I want to say that their calling card about fly high.
Oh, yeah, no, I'll count of three. You can do it. I don't know it off the top of my head.
On the count of three, you and me, it's fly high Rilo. I want Brian to hear us, okay?
All right.
On the count of three, fly high Rilo.
I thought you didn't count to three.
And do it again. On the count of three.
Wait. Because hang on, because look behind you. So just look behind you real quick. When you just ask if you got photobomb, that. So if we're gonna do this, let's do it right. Because if that shows up,
God has a sense of humor, bro.
I'm dead. Y'all gotta watch the video. All right, wait. Let's do it. Let's do it for the gram.
You count it down since you're the host.
Right. We'll do it for the gram, but that was definitely not for the gram. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1, fly high.
Rilo.
There you go,
man.
And hey, real quick, you know what Rilo stands for is reasons I live on, and that's what I thought you were
right.
talking about. It's reasons I live on, and man, we all have reasons to live on. So thank you for living on, brother. I love you, and I can't wait to see you in a few weeks.
Look, counting down the days, man. We're gonna have a great time.
All right.
To all your listeners, thank you for listening to me.
Yes, sir. Anytime, you're always welcome.